How much do we really need to be getting these vitamin and nutrient IVs? Is it important to be getting injections and doing these fancy IVs? And how much should we be focusing on detoxing and big, long detox protocols? How important is that? Today, I can't wait to have this conversation with Dr. Jess. She's a friend of mine that I met, I met her a little over a year ago, maybe it was. I think a little over a year ago. I loved her journey. I loved her story. I had her on my podcast originally, just telling her whole story, and I had to have her back because of what she's up to. So what I love about Dr. Jess is she's a traditionally trained Western medicine doctor. She worked in the hospital system for years. What I love about Dr. Jess is she took her oath seriously. So it was to do no harm to patients. And she, unlike a lot of doctors, to remain nameless, but unlike a lot of them, she took this very, very seriously and said, even if it upsets the board, even if it upsets the state, even if it upsets some of my colleagues and my paycheck and where I live, I will speak the truth. I'm going to constantly put patients, their health as the priority. She took this seriously. And then when she had her own setbacks, she took it to a whole nother level. So today, not only is she, asked to speak on countless stages and interviews about what she's learned and what she believes and what she teaches, but she's also gotten very passionate about the supplement world and what's actually important and versus what's just marketing and gimmick and we don't really need. So thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Jess.
Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate you having me back.
So for people that have not heard you yet, not met you yet, can we tell a little bit about your story, your journey? Like you were a traditional doctor. That's what you wanted to do. Where did that start and where did that pivot in a very different direction?
Well, I'm originally from West Virginia and I'm from the country. And when I grew up, there just wasn't talk of natural medicine or natural schools for doctors. So I barely knew about chiropractic school when I went to conventional medical school. And, I believed everything they told me. We don't know what the root cause of things are. And I got my flu shot every year and ate the cafeteria food. And eventually, I started to wake up around probably 2012, 2013. And it really started to pull my heartstrings because I didn't feel like discharging people on 40 different medications was health. I didn't feel like, the different foods, the Jello, the factory farm meat, the dairy we were feeding people in the hospital was okay when you were dealing with sick and chronically ill patients. And so I started to speak up and they didn't really like that very much. They labeled me a disruptive physician and asked me to stop being a liability. And so I ended up quitting because of that and really got trained in a bunch of different functional medicine, things like ozone, things like the Institute of Functional Medicine, nutrigenomics, and different things like that. And where I landed in the end, when I kept asking questions till I couldn't ask questions anymore about people and why they were sick, was that most of it was things like environmental toxins that were man-made industrial toxins, heavy metals, and then the significant pathogens that came with those things like mold and parasites and Lyme that were overlooked. And, it was hard for a really long time. I didn't make very much money. I was driving all over the place to shadow people to learn. But in the end, I feel so much better because I feel like I really, truly help people and get them off of medicine rather than put them on.
It's so interesting because I believe that people decide they want to be a doctor for the right intentions. Like they want to heal, they want to help people, they want to really help. And where do you think this goes wrong? Because I feel like there's so many that fall out of what you're talking about. And really, they start listening to just the pharmaceutical side of things, or it goes against being able to use what they intuitively know. And it's a different process. Where do you think that goes wrong? Where does that happen?
Honestly, I think it's a lot of group think and herd mentality. Conversations around the water cooler at the hospital, certain things people do, what you get used to seeing other doctors order and prescribe and say and write in charts. And there's a certain unspoken precedent you're expected to follow. And you're not supposed to be loud or disruptive or speak out of turn. You're too busy. People are too busy for that. And I really do feel like a lot of it is herd mentality. I do.
Yeah. How were you able to still speak your truth, knowing like your license is at risk, knowing that you're going to have that judgment, knowing it's going to affect your paycheck? Like, how did you get past it? My gosh, you see people, they're scared to even just share on social media because of that, but you were risking your whole career.
I really feel as though back then, like this was probably, I was really being a loudmouth in the hospital. hospital around 2015, the end of
Okay.
2015. And so I really feel like it was before the era of COVID where they came down and really threatened our licenses. So I was
Hmm.
a little bit more brazen, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, but it did threaten my job and my livelihood. They said, you can't work for us anymore if you don't stop this. And that's when I quit. And I really think, Natalie, it was a lot about ignorance. I didn't understand that there wasn't a ready-made system out there for doctors, natural doctors. When I
Yeah.
graduated medical school, they plugged me into the hospital and my malpractice was taken care of. My insurance was taken care of.
Mm.
Everything was just laid out for you. When you are a chiropractor, a naturopathic doctor, or, any sort of natural practitioner, you have to know about business too, because there's not a ready-made system for you to go out there and just plug and chug. And I think if I had known that, I probably wouldn't have jumped as quickly as I did, because I made probably a fourth of what is made in the hospital for a couple of years.
Yeah. You know, it's wild. And I want to say this because this is important. Just sometimes we'll hear somebody in the natural world, like maybe they're acupuncture or they're chiropractic or they're naturopath, but they're more traditional, didn't go to traditional medical school like you did. And you'll hear them talk about something, and the argument from a commenter or a naysayer they'll say, well, they're not a real doctor. But what's so wild to me is here you actually are that real doctor. Like you went to the traditional system, you did the medical school, you did the residency, and you said, I need to look at this, the more natural path. So you're literally the combination of both, and you still got that judgment, which is so wild.
Oh, yeah. I feel because I took a road less traveled, I felt that I recently was very persecuted for things, but that's to be expected. If you're going to be outspoken and you're going to be a
Mhm.
trailblazer, you better get used to criticism, and it's not always constructive.
Yeah. So talk to me about your health journey. And then you all, I'm going to get into exactly what I brought up because I have a lot of questions for her, but I want you to understand her background first. So number one, she's a traditional trained doctor. She worked in the hospital system. She's did the residency. She did all the things, but she also started thinking outside of the box, risked her job for the idea of helping patients. And then what helped it on your own health journey? And I believe some of this stress probably played a role, I'm assuming.
Oh, absolutely. I think it played the biggest role, and I think it's so underappreciated, really, in society. So I have a pretty resilient
Mhm.
genotype and phenotype, meaning my genes and my body are pretty resilient. I'm not sensitive to supplements. I could probably eat whatever I wanted, even if I
Okay.
choose not to. And so I really thought that I would never be sick. And I
Mm.
ended up really turning into one of my patients. And I respect so many people who are ill now, because I see how it's hard to see yourself and how by the time you catch up with it, it's too late. And
Yeah.
so for me, I had a series of events happen, lawsuits, and they came after my license in
Mm.
California. I eventually surrendered for doing vaccine exemptions. So there's been a lot of really controversial, stressful things that have happened to me.
Yeah.
And I ended up garnishing a title of complex PTSD after the last 7 years, which is not a big, huge event, that happened like a war that caused PTSD, but it's
Hmm.
complex PTSD is a title given to people who've had a number of traumas back to back that add
Mm.
up that caused this picture. And I had an emotional traumatic brain injury from this. And what we think happened is that I really was stripped of B vitamins. When you're really stressed out long term, you start to dump minerals and vitamins out in the urine, things like sodium, potassium, magnesium. And so I was really low in minerals in general, but especially B vitamins. And by the time I figured out what was going on, I had gotten labs. And some of my labs were just outrageously ridiculous. Like my MCV, that's a regular lab in your complete blood count panel, CBC panel. And it shows if the red blood cells are too big because you have a B vitamin deficiency. So you want this really around 85, 90.
Okay.
Mine was 106. So I had these huge red blood cells because you need B vitamins to make red blood cells. And what this did was it gave me neuropsychiatric symptoms. I mean, I was,
Yeah.
really contemplating suicide certain days. I was super
Wow. So you
depressed.
got an actual depression from this. Makes
Oh my gosh, it was heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said something a minute ago that I want to circle back and ask because I feel like some people, when they hear that, they shut out whoever I'm talking to or whoever I'm interviewing.
Mm.
And I want to lean into that because it's important. So you made a comment about I wrote the most vaccine exemptions in San Diego. I know you were living there, and they didn't like that. And I just, anyone that was maybe triggered by that, I just want to be
Mm.
really clear. This is not a conversation about being anti-vax or
Mhm.
pro-vax. It's a conversation about some people, no matter what you believe, you have to own that some people would not do well with vaccines. Some people, right? So we're not saying necessarily everyone, whether you believe
Right.
or not, some people. So what happened was in California, it was very hard to get that exemption if you knew you had a family problem or an autoimmune or so Dr. Jess became somebody who had that compassion and would help. And so I don't want to skip over how stressful that must have been, where you are actually helping people that are coming to you, basically asking for mercy, saying, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm scared my kid will die.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I want to acknowledge like how much weight that must have been on you in that conversation.
Absolutely. It was, I appreciate that. Yeah. It was the hardest decision of my life, actually. And yeah, because I went into it really trying to do it for the health of the children. California passed a law where they mandated 72 doses of vaccines to attend public school. And just, I could handle that. I'm a
Yeah.
resilient genotype, but
And a lot
I
of people
don't,
could, but some
yeah.
can't. Yeah.
Some really just, you can't, you have to respect that. Some can't.
Yeah.
So,
So I just want to, because, even I know people that are really against changes with vaccines or even the new administration. And I always ask them, I'm saying, well, regardless of what you believe or what you're against or what you want for you, do we acknowledge that some people can't handle that? Some people, and starting with that.
right.
And in California, it was very hard to find a doctor that would help with that exemption. And so just was one of them. So because you were navigating that and had so much stress from that, I believe that also is what obviously pushed over your health.
Absolutely. I was in a pretty, a relationship that didn't feel safe too. It was hitting me from a lot of different angles in my life. And
Hmm.
I was saying, I can handle it. I can handle it like I think a lot of women do,
Yeah.
especially in midlife, we think we are superwoman. And I was no different. And I was also running, two businesses at the time. And so really when I got those labs and I saw, my MCV was 106, my vitamin D was 10. I mean,
Wow.
10.
10.
10, you guys. I mean, I don't even know how I was living. And then, my CRP, which is a non-specific inflammation marker, was 8, and it's supposed to be low below 3. And I wondered, gosh, no wonder I couldn't lose this 30 extra
Right.
pounds I had in my body. I was full of inflammation, and it came from stress.
Yeah, that's wild. So when we talk about stress killing, I don't know how people really don't. I'm in denial about it too sometimes. Obviously, I know that I live that type A life. So we start with external things. We're like, well, I should start to meditate or I need to walk in the beach. And which by the way, just lived in California and now Florida. So she got the beach part dialed in. She had that down.
Yes.
You did what a lot of other people did. You started doing IVs and experimenting with those cocktails. You called it before we started interviewing the Myers cocktail. Tell us
Yeah.
about those and why have those gotten so popular and do they actually work or what are they doing?
They helped me so much. I mean, I can remember getting my labs back. I was at a Joe Dispenza event and
Mhm.
going, I need B vitamins and going to get an IV. And I felt like I was high, like I could fly home. It
Yeah.
was wild. And I thought, gosh, I must really need this.
Okay.
Clearly my labs even show it, so in a Myers cocktail, which sounds like an evening drink, it's not. It's actually an IV full of things like vitamin
Hmm.
C and B vitamins and some minerals. And sometimes they'll give you a little glutathione push if you ask for that at the end too, which is a
Yep.
master antioxidant. And I loved it, you guys. It made me feel so good. I knew immediately my body was deficient in many, many minerals, not just the ones probably that they were giving me. And when you feel it immediately within like 10 minutes, it says a big thing. And what's weird for me is I was so stressed out. I was eating the right diet. I was eating red meat, I was eating eggs, and I still wasn't getting B vitamins. I didn't have
Hmm.
vitamin D. I was out in the sun. So I was so stressed out, I wasn't able to absorb and assimilate things. So that was my reasoning for getting the IVs is there's something going on with my gut. I'm leaky
Yeah.
gut. I'm not absorbing things because I'm so stressed. My body can't even do it. So I need to bypass my gut and go right into a vein where I
Hmm.
can ensure that, I'm getting all the things I need because I feel terrible and I can't go another day not feeling I can get out of bed.
But when you go the IV route, how often is enough? And is this something like you'd have to do every day? Because I feel like some people are like, oh, once a month I go get an IV. Is that doing anything? Where is that line? And where is this more important than doing an actual supplement? Like, help us understand that. Because I think people do spend a lot of money on IVs, not really understanding what they're doing.
That's right. I mean, really, when it's something like a chronic pathogen or infection that you have, I don't really think they hit the mark as much as I'd like them to be quite honest with you.
Okay.
But if something like missing minerals or a vitamin deficiency, they really fill the gap for that until you can get your gut back on track. That should be the goal is, like, how am I going to get 100% absorption or get my gut to remember how to absorb again? And at that point, I was just too stressed out to do it until I got some minerals in me to ground me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, I can get my gut and my brain back a little bit so I can take things orally. But yeah, they work great for just things like that. And I would suggest, for me, I felt them for about 10 to 14 days.
Okay.
So most people end up going, once a week and once every other week. For me, it was every other week. And I did that for probably 2.5 months until I thought, okay, I think I can probably absorb a little bit better now. I'm going to move over to supplements and powders and capsules. And eventually, liquids are really my favorite, liposome.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you about that in just a minute because I have a lot of questions there. But what about some people, me included, this has happened to me, where sometimes I'll get an IV and it doesn't feel good. It does the opposite effect. Like I noticed with me, if I were to do a glutathione push in an IV, I don't feel good after. What is that happens to some people, and why are some people absorbing it and some people it's too much?
So, that's a good thing for, anyone to know about their genes. So there are some genetic differences that can be turned on or off for people who do well. Some people can't even take oral glutathione. But definitely if you have problems with the IV, you might have a genetic mutation called CBS, just like the news station, CBS. And that's an inability to process sulfur that is not made inside your body. It's given to you. And glutathione is a master antioxidant, but it's made from sulfur. So if you guys have ever seen glutathione in the product, it can smell like fart almost.
Yeah.
It's because it smells like
It's
sulfur.
funny that people describe it that way because I actually like the taste of it. So I don't like it. Doesn't smell like
it
that to me.
tastes good. It does, but the
Yeah.
taste, like people
Especially
think it's
yours.
gonna taste like it smells. Yeah. So, but because some people can't take it in the IV form because they have this genetic predisposition. And then some people have a really common genetic predisposition called a slow COMT.
Okay.
And in that one, they can't take methylated B vitamins very well. It kind of makes them feel like they had too many cups of coffee.
Okay, that's funny. That's what I actually have. I actually have that. And that makes sense now because why I feel that with IVs, I can't do them, but I can take supplements and not have that issue.
So you probably have like one genetic change, like one allele. You probably don't have both of them. So you can take oral things and be fine. But when you get IV, you're like, whoa, that is way too much.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. I'm like, you're supposed to feel better. It doesn't work.
Right.
Now, it's interesting because you decided to partner with and create Aegis. Where did that come from? Why did you decide? Is it because you saw were you using certain supplements that you didn't believe in, or was there not existing things on the market for what was your thought process behind that?
Well, originally, I really wanted to work with a team I could trust because in the past, I picked the wrong business people to work with. And so this team has been excellent. We all have different characteristics and talents that are very synergistic. So that was really important to me, and I wanted to be intentionally disruptive within the market. I really wanted to fill a gap that was needed, and that it was all built on my personal story that I needed supplements for me. So our flagship product was created because I needed methylated B vitamins. It's selfish. It's a selfish genesis, but honestly, I wanted a product that I knew I could absorb, and the other people who have problems with their gut, their bloating, their leaky gut could absorb. And so the creation of Aegis, which actually Aegis means shield in Latin, and the Aegis formulas was created the goal of actually putting supplements out in the community and in society that not just work and heal, but actually are bioavailable. If we can help it, we can't put everything in a liquid because of the taste, but if we can help it and be kind to people, we want to create supplements that we know can get where they need to get so they can be efficacious and work.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's talk about this one thing I drink every day from you because I didn't even know what I was taking, and she's like, "Here, try this." I'm like, "This is good. My body's craving it." And when I
Yeah.
told you that, you're like, "Your body needs it if you're feeling like that, like you want it." So we're gonna talk about Nano Glute Plus B first because
Yes.
explain what glutathione is for people and B vitamins, like why this is important and what goes wrong trying to take this on your own other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So glutathione, I've mentioned it a couple times. It is the master antioxidant in the body, and it's a sulfur-based compound, and it really, really helps with phase 2 liver detox. So there's a lot of different things that can be detoxed out through the liver with glutathione. So we often see it in liver detoxes for that reason. Methylated B vitamins, they are just, I have to tell you, I underscored how important they were. They are just a catch-all for so many different things. And I didn't know how much my body needed them. They're needed to make red blood cells, which carry oxygen in the body with hemoglobin, right? They're needed to make hormones and neurotransmitters in the body. And, if you're trying to get pregnant, they'll tell you to have a good prenatal with methylated Bs to prevent spina bifida. And so there are so many different reasons that you need B vitamins. And actually, they are needed in phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox as well. So another reason for liver detox is methylated Bs and glutathione. And so, but then vitamin C, another catch-all antioxidant that helps with wound healing, collagen,
Mhm.
immunity. There's so many different things with vitamin C as well.
You said something that I know sounds easy to you, but I think most of my listeners probably don't know what you mean by it. And I definitely don't. What do you mean by phase 2 liver detox? Like, what is
Oh,
that? What does that mean?
yes.
And why is that important?
Yes, good question. So there's different phases of liver detox. And so what the liver does is whether it comes in contact with something that can dissolve in fats or dissolve in water, it has to turn it from fat soluble to water soluble. And so in phase 1, it'll add some chemical reactions to things. And sometimes it makes a more toxic byproduct that then is completely turned into water soluble so you can pee it out in the urine in phase 2. So really, this is a way, when I'm talking about phase 1 and phase 2, I'm talking about a way the liver takes compounds, man-made or not, and detoxes them to make them less potent and water soluble so then it can pee out in the urine.
So you're okay, because a lot of people would think, well, isn't your liver just supposed to do this? Isn't that what the organ does? So how does like a healthy functioning ideal liver work versus what's changing as we age here?
Absolutely. So the liver can get overwhelmed too, right?
Mhm.
We really want our filter organs to run at peak performance, but you're human and things can get kind of run down, and we can get things in the way that stop up like a traffic jam, the way that
Okay.
things get detoxed. So many times there are things like heavy metals that can get in the way, and you need certain minerals to be able to detox things as well too. So with the liver, I would say as you age, it's almost like
Mhm.
filling up a toxin bucket, right? The liver gets less efficient at processing, less efficient at recognizing
Is that
toxins
when
that
they
it
say
has to
like a
get rid of.
stagnant liver? Is that what that is? Okay.
Like absolutely what it is. Absolutely. Even like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease,
Okay.
that's a big doctor term for a stagnant liver that's not processing things and it's building up fat inside the liver because it's not able to process and filter correctly.
So if you have a stagnant liver and it's not processing things correctly or it's getting, what does that create in your body? Like what happens? Like what's the outcome?
A lot of times people will get like a toxic overload. They'll start to get skin rashes. They might get headaches. They might have constipation. They might feel irritable, right? Because things can cross
Yeah.
over the blood-brain barrier even and cause inflammation in the brain. So it's really the filter organ starts to not be able to release things from the body and it starts to build up. And depending on what it is, it can cause different symptoms for people.
So what's so interesting is you hear so many people talking about like, I'm going to detox. I'm going to do like, I'm going to watch the water I'm drinking, or I'm going to dry brush, or I'm going to sauna, which is, I love all those things. But like, but you don't hear enough people talking about the actual liver. And like, if that's not healthy in your body, like you could do all this other stuff, but that's like the most important part, I would imagine. So if I'm hearing you correctly, like, why wouldn't you do supportive supplements to help with that? So if I heard you correctly, like your nano glute plus B, that's literally what it's targeted to do. Is that so it to help with that pathway?
1000%.
Okay.
You'll hear a lot of people who take it and say, oh, it helps my PMS or my cycles this month. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense because the liver makes all the
Ah,
cholesterol that then turns into estrogen and progesterone. So it's
got
really
it.
important.
So that's why, okay. So, because if you're not detoxing there properly, you're going to have other problems with everything. That makes sense. So, this is like a simple thing to add. Now, why would you do this versus just any glutathione on the market, or like why? Because I mean, there's so many people that make glutathione, or like why this instead?
It really depends on what you love. Some people love patches, some people like pills. For me, I prefer something that's liposomal and nano.
What does
And when I
that mean,
say
liposomal and nano?
yes, so nano, don't worry, guys. I feel like people think I've got little like bugs crawling on inside them when I say nanotechnology. No, it just means that things are less than 1 micron in size. So
Okay.
it's very small, which means, and then liposomal means that we've got it packaged in a little fat globule, so it's easily absorbed
Okay.
in the mouth or buccal cavity. And so when held under the tongue for 30 to 60 seconds, we can guarantee 100% absorption for people through here, rather than having to swallow a pill and it being
Okay.
processed by the stomach acid and then filtered by the liver and absorbed. You really probably get 20 to 25% of capsules absorbed. And that just wasn't good enough for me, especially with my situation. I wanted something that I knew that what I was paying for was being 100% absorbed.
Okay, so I've been doing this every day, your nano glut plus B, but I haven't been doing what you just said. So am I supposed to be holding it under my
Oh.
tongue? I've been screwing this up. Oh my gosh.
That's okay. That's okay. You're still getting some of it, but
I'm
I
just not
bet
getting 100%. Okay, so you
you'll get
hold
a
it under
lot
your tongue.
more.
You
Yeah.
hold it under your tongue. Okay, I didn't know this. I
No,
just
that's
squirt it in and
okay.
swallow it. I'm like, oh, it's good. I like it. It's so funny because when she first came, I was just like, yum. And you're like, some people don't like the taste. I'm like, this is good. And then I texted you later. I'm like, I need more of that stuff. That was good.
Oh yeah,
That's,
that's my favorite.
I think
I
it tastes
don't
good.
ever miss it. I don't ever miss it.
So
Yeah.
you do like 4 droppers and you hold it under your tongue each time for 30 seconds.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
didn't know
and
that.
you should feel like, within a few minutes, because it absorbs so quickly there, you should feel a lift in brain fog. You should feel grounded, calm energy. You should feel, kind of a more of a pep in your step a little
That's so
bit.
funny because I have another supplement, which I'm not going to share about right now, that is also liposomal. I didn't know what it meant. So I was like, I got to I didn't know it. Now I understand. Okay. I didn't understand. So it's like, it's
Yes,
the fat globule. So it helps you absorb it 100%. Or if you just take a capsule, you're not.
correct.
But if you're doing an IV, like you said, you're also absorbing 100% because it's going direct. Is there any benefit to doing that versus this? Does it matter?
It doesn't really matter. I would say that the IV is probably you're going to hit you a little bit harder, right? You're going to
Mm,
have a bigger bounce. They're going to have way more vitamin C, let's say an
okay.
IV, than what we would put in that supplement, a
Got
daily
it.
dose. So they're hitting you with a bigger milligram punch, I would say. And
Mhm.
if it's going straight into a vein, you're probably going to even feel it faster than absorbing in the buccal cavity.
So it sounds like anyone could take this unless you said you have both. Did I hear this right? Both of the COMT and you can't do sulfur. But if you have one, you probably still can. Is that actually okay?
That's right. That's right. And for everyone listening, don't freak out and say, oh my gosh, I have to have genetic testing before I can
Yes.
take this. You can take 1 dropper full and see. Most people, even if they have a slow COMT or, really, really sensitive, you guys know how you are. You can titrate very slowly. There's no reason to start out, with 4 dropper fulls if you're not
What would it
sure.
feel like if it's too much? Like, how would you know it's like not the right thing?
It's almost like they feel like they've had too much caffeine, like they're
Okay.
too pinged or turned on.
Anxiety, like a little
Um,
anxiety, maybe.
yeah, a
Okay.
little jittery.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's funny. Okay, so I have a lot of questions here, but I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent. But this is like a personal
sure.
question to me too. So, does this have to do like some people like mitochondrial supplements? They have that feeling too. Is that same connection?
So it's a little bit different here. The B vitamins do help mitochondria. They do help things like that. They're just kind of foundation stuff. So they're going to
Hmm.
turn on all the energy producing mechanisms and really revving up, your ways to make neurotransmitters and things. And people just, if you can, a slow CMT breaks things like adrenaline down and
Mm,
cortisol and estrogen. And so if it's slow, you're going to have trouble just breaking down some of these processes that are
that makes
revving you
sense.
up.
Yeah, like I know for me, I can't do NAD for that reason. It like makes you feel like I'm on speed.
That's right, like a
Yeah.
tweaker. You're like, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Mm-mm. No. So are people hurting themselves by doing that? Because I know people are going to listen. And is it more your body just reacts different to it, but it's still beneficial? Or is it like, no, if you're feeling that, you should not do?
It's actually still, some people still really need B vitamins, even if they
Hmm.
can't handle like methylated B
Okay.
vitamins, they still need them. And
Yeah.
so they still have these processes to run in the body that can't happen, but it feels so overwhelming to their body that they just can't tolerate it. So I would say they're still good, but they can't handle it. Luckily, there's other types of B vitamins vitamins they can handle
Totally.
that are made for their genes, things like adenosylcobalamin or
Makes
hydroxycobalamin
sense.
or SAM-E. But this, it's not hurting you. It's just really uncomfortable.
Yeah, so it's just listening
Yeah.
to your body and you kind of know this that didn't feel good, this did feel good. I had that same conversation with NAD, just like everyone's going, it's the most amazing. I'm like, but I take it and I don't feel good. So you have to listen to what your body is feeling good with versus what it doesn't. But I will tell you, based on what you just said, like I'm probably one of those ones that wouldn't ideally do glutathione, but I actually love this and I feel great with it. So there's that
Good.
too.
Good. That's good. Everyone's asked, we have a smaller dose in some people in that, and it's because it's liposomal and it's nano, and we can guarantee 100% absorption. We don't have to up the dosages like you would in a capsule form because we
Makes
know you
sense.
can absorb more. Yeah.
Makes
So I'm
total
glad it
sense.
works.
So let's talk
Yeah.
about TUDCA now, because I hear a lot of companies say TUDCA, and I didn't realize until you told me that you're TUDCA Max, that TUDCA is like an actual thing that people do. Explain what that is and why we need to look at that.
So TUDCA is a really big name, you guys. I'm going to say it for you.
Mhm.
Tauroursodeoxycholic acid.
Oh
And
my God, I can't
so
remember
that's
that.
right. It's
Say it again
TUDCA.
5 times. Yeah, I'm just
Toro
kidding.
ursodeoxycholic acid, right? So TUCA for short. The T in TUCA stands for taurine, or Toro for short with a word, and taurine is an amino acid. It
Mhm.
actually is able to cross the blood-brain barrier and help with cognition and brain fog. So a lot of TUCA can also have, if you look up the studies, a lot of benefit with like things like neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's,
Mhm.
and people who have a lot of brain fog and neuroinflammation. The taurine in TUCA really, really helps with that. Otherwise, TUCA is a bile salt. And what it does is it helps the formation and flow of bile. Now, why should you guys care about
Yeah,
bile? That
what is
sounds really
bile actually? Like,
boring.
what is it? No, we need to know what is it. Like, this is the reason people say this stuff is boring is they don't understand it. So that's why I want you to help us like really understand what is the point of bile? What is it doing?
So you guys, most of the ladies listening will understand what bile is when I say this. Bile is what causes you to have your gallbladder taken out. It is made by the liver and stored in the little sac that hangs below the liver on the right upper quadrant of your abdomen, and that's called the gallbladder. And so anytime you eat a fatty meal, you expel bile. And so the stomach acid in your stomach breaks down food, it's really acidic. Then you push stuff from the stomach into the small intestines. And the
Mhm.
minute it enters the small intestines, the bile is very alkaline, it's not acidic. So you pour bile in there actually to stop the acidic reaction. And bile is actually a breakdown of red blood cells. So you can see if you don't have B vitamins, how your bile would start to be stagnant over time,
Oh,
right? All connected. So bile is really good for breaking down fatty foods. If your stool floats all the time, you're dumping too much fat out in the stool. There's something going on with the bile,
oh,
right?
got it. Okay.
Yeah, so bile is really important too for absorbing fat soluble vitamins. It's really fatty. Remember, so vitamins
Mm-hmm.
A, D,
Mm-hmm.
E, and K. So a lot of people who will have really low vitamin D, like I did, I have to ask about their bile. So you can see because I have B vitamin deficiency, I had stagnant bile because it's the breakdown of red blood cells needed to be made from B vitamins. And then I can't absorb things like vitamin D because I don't have
Wow.
bile.
Got it. So TUDCA helps this not be stagnant. Did I say that right? Got it.
You
So
did.
is there any reason people shouldn't be? I mean, it sounds like everyone needs to take this.
I wanted to create this supplement. TUDCA is one of my favorite supplements on the market. I have such a passion for TUDCA because it helps women cycle, it helps bowel movements, it helps cognition, so many different liver detox. I had to make it, and I really wanted something that everyone needed. And
Is
this is
there
something,
any reason you would not want to take TUDCA?
if you had a big gallstone, you might want to
Okay.
be really careful or take it under guided supervision
Because it would break it up
because
too quick. Is that what would happen or what would it do?
well, sometimes TUDCA can stimulate gallbladder contraction, and with a
Mm.
big stone, it would hit at the wall, right? And if the stone is banging up against the gallbladder, that's what causes gallbladder pain. That's what leads to people having their gallbladders taken out. So you really want to be careful if there's a big, huge gallstone.
Okay. We would know if we had a gallstone, I would imagine. You have.
Oh yeah, yeah, you would know. You would be pretty much be in pain,
So
most of
what?
the time.
So the only time before I got yours to try, and I just trusted you, I'm like, oh, Jess, let's take it. I'll take it. But before I started doing that, the only time I ever heard of people taking TUDCA is when they were doing like a parasite cleanse or they're doing a liver detox or whatever. So it sounds to me, just from asking you this question, that the reason they put those in those protocols is it doesn't hurt. You have to move your bile along. You have to make it not stagnant. So they're just adding that in almost like as an insurance thing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's one of the supplements I would use for drainage or opening detox
Okay.
organs. So I like to prep the body before I do a detox. I like to make sure it's ready. I like to make sure people are sleeping okay, they can sweat okay, they're pooping twice a day, their bile in their liver is kind of in okay shape. And
Okay.
TUDCA is one of the ways I get them there before the detox.
Got it. So you don't have to
Yeah.
just take this though for a detox, like we should be. So you take this every day.
I do. I take it probably every other day, every couple days. I'm sort of a bad patient that way.
Does it
But
matter
yes.
when you take it or with food or without food?
Yes, it does matter. You want to take it with food, preferably a fatty meal, actually, if you
Okay.
can. And I take it religiously every day the week before my cycle because it
Okay.
helps with PMS symptoms or menopausal
Wow.
symptoms for people too, because the bile is a part of hormones.
How is it? I'm not sure I understand the hormone connection with bile. Help with that.
So there's something called the enterohepatic pathway, which is where bile is the kind of, remember I talked about phase one, phase two
Yep.
liver detox, bile is phase three. So
Okay.
what happens with this is the bile is able to dump estrogen out the bowels. But here's where it's connected to the gut. If you have a lot of dysbiosis, meaning bad gut bacteria,
hmm
there's a certain type of bacteria that is so smart, it's able to talk to the body and it tells the body, hey, untag that estrogen that you have tagged for disposal out the bowels. So instead of pooping out the estrogen, this gut bacteria tells
hmm
your body to reabsorb the estrogen through the bile back into the bloodstream. So
Wow.
then you have an estrogen dominance.
Yes. But it's not like the estrogen that you want to help with your aging and stuff. So you're getting, it's like a recycled. Okay. So, thanks. You're explaining this really well because we hear little bits and pieces from our clinician, but not the full story here. So this is starting to make sense. So like a lot of people get the Dutch test, for example, and they see they have that happening, but they're like, but I'm having hot flashes. So how am I estrogen dominant? This makes sense because it's coming back
Right.
through here.
Right, exactly. Or, their progesterone's too low compared to the reabsorption of estrogen, right? It's all the ratios.
So just because you're reabsorbing estrogen, it does not mean it's the right kind of estrogen because you're using like am I saying that? Correct me if I'm saying that's wrong. I'm trying to connect the dots here because this
Correct.
happens like you hear menopausal women, they're like, but I have low estrogen symptoms, but their Dutch test is showing they have too much estrogen. This is probably what's happening.
Exactly. And so then we can need to look at this one marker on a gut test.
hmm
And the marker is beta glucuronidase.
Okay.
And so what this enzyme that this bacteria makes in the gut is beta glucuronidase. That's what tells the body to untag estrogen and
hmm
stop pooping it out. So reabsorption. So I see this so much on gut tests. People have this number so high, and then I
hmm
give them something like calcium D-glucarate, which helps gluconoridation, which is phase two liver detox. It
Uh-huh.
helps phase three. And then everything starts being pooped out as it should. Estrogen dominance goes away and people's symptoms get better.
Okay, so I have a question now. This is going to get a little bit more specific. Sorry, I'm going a little deeper here.
Yes. Yes.
So, what's the difference then between taking calcium D-glucuronidate or DIM
hmm
or doing TUDCA? Or should you be doing
hmm
all of them? Because they all seem to do that, but in different ways.
They work in very synergistic ways. You're exactly right. I'm glad that you said DIM because DIM helps to shuffle over from the bad estrogen to the good estrogen
Okay.
and it helps lower it.
Okay.
Okay. Calcium D-glucarate helps from reabsorbing it. So you can see how they fix two different problems
Uh-huh.
here, right?
Okay.
In different ways. So it's really good to get a Dutch test and a gut test if you really want to know what's going on. But then also TUDCA works on moving the bile, right? So yes, they're very synergistic. They work in completely different ways. And I would say you need to be a little more careful with DIM. You need to know what kind of type of estrogen you're making, but calcium D-glucarate is pretty benign, and so is TUDCA.
Okay. When you
So,
said that about be careful with DIM, I'm guessing
mhm.
because it could take out too much estrogen and then you're too like someone like me who's wearing an estrogen patch, I'm trying to get my estrogen up. DIM would yank that out. So what would be safer is the calcium D-glucuronidate
D-glucarate.
and TUDCA
Right.
max because that's just
Yes.
helping my body process. Is that accurate? Okay, you
Exactly.
guys following this?
Exactly.
Tell us if we're talking too deep. I'm
Yes.
trying to break this down simple. So this is important because we've had a lot of guests on talking about hormones, but like these are the important little things that a lot of doctors skip with us because it's a 5-minute visit and they're not getting all this information. So we
Yeah.
hear, it's hard enough to get a freaking Dutch test sometimes. Like,
It's horrible to get testing that you need to find everything out. I mean, it's really hard because you need a gut test with this and a hormone test to know the
yeah.
full picture. And honestly, Dim, you need to know that you're making there's a 4-OH estrogen that leans more towards breast cancer, and don't
Okay.
want that. You want the 2-OH. So Dim helps shuffle from the 4-OH to the 2-OH while also lowering estrogen. So there's a lot of women I see that are menopausal that are making the wrong
Okay.
type of estrogen, but then their
Yep.
Dutch test says, oh, you have too little estrogen, but all the estrogen you're making is the wrong type, right? So then you're like, what do? do, what I suggest is getting a saliva test, a ZRT saliva hormone test to make sure you're metabolizing the hormones properly. The saliva will tell you, and that you can match up with the Dutch test. For me, on my Dutch test, my estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are all pretty low. When I got a saliva test, my progesterone was the only one that was low.
Jess, do
So
you know how confusing this is for us? Because like you're breaking this
yes,
down a lot, but I think of every
it's
guest I've had on
confusing.
here, and you have like I just recently had a guest that said she doesn't believe in Dutch tests. I had somebody else say they don't believe in
Hmm.
saliva tests. So there's just so many opinions out there. It's really hard for people. It's really hard for us to
It's
know.
hard. I agree. And to be honest, this is sometimes why people get frustrated with the practitioners and the doctors because they'll suggest lots of testing. And it's
Yeah.
because we're comparing the tests because nothing is perfect and we're trying to get the
Mm.
perfect answer for you guys by looking at things in a different lens and a different perspective to figure
Got
out
it.
what it is.
So
So
don't
it
get
is
annoyed with the
confusing.
doctor. Do it so I know because like sometimes they want like the genetic. You're like, why all these tests? But it makes sense because you want to understand, just like you said with the genetic testing at the beginning, it helps you figure out why you might be having a reaction to something or where other people don't.
Or,
Makes total
your predisposition, And
yeah.
my thing with tests is I don't get a lot of tests. I'm not test heavy. I usually people will have to ask me for tests rather than me suggest them. But sometimes with hormones, they're a little trickier. They really
Yeah.
are, ladies. And so for me, I like to look at the bile, the liver, the main organs that make hormones and are
Mhm.
responsible for them. The gut's a little bit involved too.
Yes.
So I explained that to you guys. So that's why I like to hit it from different angles. The
Uh,
TUDCA looks at the gut, the
Yes.
liver, right?
But
The
I also kind
dim.
of like what you did here because I don't even know if you really realize you or if you were that strategic about it. But you said instead of just like going and just recommending general supplements or saying go get an IV, you're saying, okay, I see the commonalities with tests. I see what could be going on. I'm going to create some products that it really, no matter what your test comes back, these are going to kind of be safe for you. Like I like that because I think of some supplements that we hear about and they're not actually ideal for everybody. And like you did something like Tug Max, the way you did it, like we all can really use it. It's not dangerous. It's like we can all use it. It's going to help all of us without having to have all the tests to make sure. Where you
That's
pick up
right.
another. So I do like that about this. I see where you really put the thought process into it.
Yeah, and with Nanoglut B, it's more of a liver supplement, and then Tudca's the bile, but we also have NAC and milk thistle in there too, which also helps with liver detox. So these two together are more like a liver gallbladder expert kit. And yeah, I really wanted to pair these together because I'll tell you, welcome to the Western world where 1 out of 3 people has some problems with the liver, stagnant
Hmm.
liver.
And
Yeah.
okay, so that's interesting. You just said milk thistle. You all, how many times have you had milk thistle tea because you heard it's good for your liver? This is why. So she's basically saying we're putting that herb in here to make that work. That makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. Those are the two products I'm taking, you guys, by the way, Tudka and the Nano Glute B. And that's what I'm doing. And by the way, I'm going to link all this up for you guys too. We're not done yet, but if you go to midlifeconversations.com/Aegis, AEGIS. So midlifeconversations.com/Aegis, AEGIS. And then Jess and her company gave us a little discount for listening. So it's Natalie Jill, and you get a discount if you want to try anything. Okay, now let's talk about the two that I'm not actually using yet, but I'm probably going to start because you're going to drop some knowledge bombs on me and I'll understand. Explain the elemental edge to me because to me, I picked it up and I'm like, well, it's minerals and there's already minerals I use. Why is this different? Why should we be using it in addition? Like, tell me why you developed this.
Right. I love minerals in my water, guys. I'm not knocking them at all. I do it every day too. But depending on what you're using, if you look at them, they'll say, 70, 86 trace minerals, something
Okay.
like that. They may say, sodium, potassium, magnesium, and that's it, depending on what you're doing. So for me, I was doing that stuff too. But when I was really stressed out, it wasn't enough. I loved it, but it wasn't enough. And let me explain why. Physiologically, if you are stressed out long term, first your blood pressure raises. You can think about that. People are really stressed out, they have high blood
Okay.
pressure.
Yep.
All right, because their blood vessels are constricted, they're stressed out all the time. But over time, over the long term, you'll start to see people's blood pressure drop over time. You'll start to see them get fatigued and not be able to get out of bed
Yeah.
after long-term stress, chronic fatigue syndrome. That is due to dumping minerals out of the kidneys, things like sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium. That's why you need more magnesium. You need more B vitamins when you're stressed out. And I went years binding and sweating and being stressed out and binding all my minerals up and sweating all my
Mm,
minerals up and then being stressed out. So for me, these trace minerals in water just weren't cutting it. I
okay.
needed high doses things that they often didn't have high enough, things like boron, which really helps you sleep, helps activate vitamin D, things like, B2, riboflavin, and vitamin E, which help even lower prolactin levels in the brain. They help to like air traffic control with hormones here. So for me, I needed the high doses and more than the recommended daily allowance. So in this mineral formula, I really included high doses of trace minerals, things like copper, chromium, cobalt, magnesium, selenium, iodine. There's more in there as well. But for this formula, I did not include B vitamins because they're already in Nano Blue B.
And so it sounds to me like you're making this as more of a therapeutical, like, because you were getting yourself healthy. Like you were like, this is something's not right. So this makes sense. It's almost like your prescription for this. It's like, okay, so yes, I believe in trace minerals. Yes, I think it's important. And like she knows the brands that I've shared and used. We talked about
I love them.
Like Beam that I love. But she's saying keep doing that. And this is also another level of like you can add this in too, especially if you're feeling sick or you've been highly stressed or another level.
Yes, 1000%. That's what I use it for. And I still take them every day. And you'll see the recommended daily allowance on there. This is a capsule. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Because these minerals taste awful. So you want them in a capsule. They taste awful. Yeah, minerals taste
don't
terrible.
Smell bad in the capsule though.
So they're like a metal taste almost. So that's why we did a capsule with this one. But you can see the recommended daily allowance is 4 pills. Okay. And if you're someone you just are sensitive, maybe you try one and see how you feel. They are recommended to take with food because copper and boron can cause nausea on an empty stomach. So food.
So, but if they love like Beam minerals, because I've been shouting from the roof, like you could try this on top of, but you don't have, so I do Beam like all day long. Like I'm obsessed with them.
Love it.
So this is another level that you could do it. It doesn't hurt to do in addition. Got it. That makes total sense. Okay. Then the other product I'm going to ask you about that she sent me this. And I was like, why is she sending me this? I don't understand. But now she said, no, you're missing it. She said she's actually going to change the name because of what I said. So it's called Post Pill Ease. Now listen up, you all midlife women listening. They all are thinking what I'm thinking. They're like, well, I'm not on the pill. What do you mean? So why'd you call it that? And what is it?
Let me explain. So a lot of the things that are in here are things that are stripped by the birth control pill and things like B vitamins and magnesium and some things. I even included some adaptogenic herbs in there. But the other day, I'm just newly on bioidentical hormone therapy. I'm on progesterone and I'm having some cycle irregularities. Honestly, I woke up literally 3 days ago with the worst headache. It woke me up at 5 a.m. I mean, it was like almost a sick headache. And wasn't time for me to start progesterone. I was out of chaseberry tree and I thought, chaseberry tree helps increase progesterone. And I was like, this feels like an estrogen headache. Like it feels hormonal. So I go and I'm like, I do have a bunch of post pill E's. And post pill E's has ingredients in it. They're going to replace things that birth control pill strip, but it also helps with evening out hormones in general. So evening out progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. It has adaptogenic herbs. They're going to raise you and lift your mood. And so that's what I needed at that time. It's a powder. It tastes like an Arnold Palmer. It tastes so good. I put it in. Yes, it tastes so good.
So we can drink
I put it in water, stir it, and literally an hour later,
my headache was gone. I'm gonna be trying it today, you guys. And I haven't been on the pill for like 20 years, but I'm gonna try it.
Me either. So yes, it's made for women coming off the pill, but if you're not off the pill, guess what? It still helps your hormones. It still helps to balance and even things out. And
I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions. Okay, first of all, why is the pill doing that to people? Explain that.
Yes, it's unfortunate. The pill, the way it works, it's synthetic. So it strips a lot of things from people, from their guts.
Okay. So if people are on it, because I'm not shaming anyone. I mean, I'm not on it. It does smell good. I'm opening it as
good. I'm glad.
Okay. So the pill, it does its job getting you not pregnant. So we know that. So yes, it's good for that. I was on it for 20 years because I didn't know any better. I went on it, my gosh, way too young. Like I hope my daughter's not listening, but I went on this way too young. But when I was a teenager, I'm older than you, Jess, I think. How old are you, Jess?
Not by a lot. I'm 46.
Okay, I'm 53. So I'm older than you. But when I was a teenager, we all went on synthetic pills to fix our periods. And
acne.
It was just so crazy. Like what? So I was on it at like age 15 or 16, something crazy young. I was on it for 20 years. which is nuts to think about. And I had no idea that it's so. Help us just with I know we're getting a little off topic, but this is important. What is synthetic hormone
Yes.
doing to people that are taking that? Like, I don't want to scare everyone, but I also want them to know, like, what's happening
Yeah,
there.
it's a good question. So, birth control pills, they can not just delete essential
It just
vitamins
tastes
and
like a pixie
minerals.
stick. Sorry.
I'm telling you, it tastes so good.
I
It
just dipped
really
my
does.
finger in here. It's like a pixie. Remember those pixie sticks? Okay, that's what it tastes
It
like.
tastes so
Okay,
good.
it's like
Yeah.
candy. Sorry. Carry on.
So they affect metabolism, liver function, and nutrient absorption. And they do this in a number of different ways. So the estrogen in birth control, it's synthetic, right? It can alter
Mhm.
your gut flora, meaning your gut bugs that are helping with your immunity. It can alter your digestive function. It can reduce the absorption of things like
Wow.
magnesium, zinc, and B vitamins. It also reduces stomach acid. And stomach acid is needed because it's a digestive fire that helps disintegrate and break down your food so you can absorb it. So without
Wow.
stomach acid, things just sit here like an anvil in your gut, right? It also increases nutrient excretion through the kidneys.
This
You
is a big
actually
deal. This is a lot. Like, this is not, and it's probably all in that pamphlet that no one reads.
That's right. It sure is. And they can increase insulin resistance and oxidative stress, different nutrient balances like copper and zinc and things like that throughout the body. And the overall things that it really has trouble with as far as like you absorbing things, the
Mhm.
way it strips things like B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, selenium, vitamin C and E, coenzyme Q10, so many things that help mitochondria and energy actually.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So this is a controversial topic, but we're going there for a second. So we know it's FDA safe because it helps you not get pregnant. So it's just interesting. The side effect is infertility, but that's what we want. So that's wild, but that's a whole nother thing. So I understand kind of, yes, if you're doing it for that reason, but if you are perimenopause, postmenopausal, like to do it for as your hormone replacement, that's a whole nother problem right there.
Yeah, it really is. There really needs to be a lot of education around that, in my opinion.
Because,
Yeah.
and am I saying this right? Like you're creating fake hormones. So we don't actually really know where you are in your stage if you're doing that. And you're getting synthetic progestins, which is the one that is linked to cancer. Is that accurate? Did I say that
That
right?
is accurate. That is
Okay.
accurate. Yeah.
Okay. So that's another big reason we don't want to be on that. So I think based on that, if you are on them now and you are perimenopause and menopausal, this is where you do need to get off them and do this, I would
Yes.
imagine, before you even look at
Yes.
bioidentical. Is that okay?
Yes, that will help a smooth transition without a lot of side effects and really
Mhm.
help balance your hormones so you know where you fall if you're getting ready to go on bioidenticals, especially.
Can they take
Yeah.
this while they're on the pill?
Yes, you can. That will help, especially if you're looking to come off soon. It will help you with an easier, smoother transition that way.
So it's not going to make your risk of pregnancy go up or anything. It's not going to change the effectiveness like an antibiotic would, but you can still got it. Okay. So if you moms, if you got your daughters on a pill, like this is a perfect thing, I would imagine for that.
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
perfect. It's made for you. We made it with you guys in mind.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. And if you are not on the pill and you are on HRT or starting or you're in perimenopause, you're saying this is still ideal there because it's going to help create a more of a balance with your hormones. I don't love the word
Correct.
balance hormones because I think our hormones are never fully balanced, but balance for you, I guess. Balance for what yours should be.
Make you feel a little more balanced in your body, more like yourself, right?
Got it.
Hormones are the scaffolding of our personality.
Okay. I love how detailed you are with your stuff. I hope you're going to create even more stuff because I feel like this is so smart because I'm starting to get your brain and why you created these things. It's not just like nothing else on the market was making sense. You're like, this is not a one size fits all, but let me figure out what could be, like what could actually help with these things.
Exactly. And next on deck, we have strips that dissolve in the mouth, like Listerine breath strips, but they have
Okay.
peptides on them. And yeah, they're going to have 100%
What?
absorbability is our goal. And we're
What
going to
kind of
have
peptides? Like
things
BPC
like,
157 or like,
yes, yes, things like something that's for the nervous system that immediately calms people. Almost, it feels a little bit
what?
like a Xanax.
I need those
Yeah,
first. When you
we're
get
gonna
that
have
one,
to yeah, give it to
send
you.
it to
Okay, we
that.
maybe a hot flash for people or a
Okay.
PMS one. We might have one for bloating and digestive function. We have one for allergies that's coming that immediately stops
Oh
allergies,
my
and it
gosh,
is
Jess, this is
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they're fun. Then they taste good. They dissolve on the tongue. I don't know. They're cool.
I just want to be
So,
clear, you all. I recruited Jess as my friend. She didn't find me. Like I met her. I'm like, we're gonna be friends. And then I told
yes.
her I wanted to try all her products. So she was not pushing them on me. Like I was like, I love this woman. Like I need to understand more about you and where you came from and why I didn't know you the rest of my life.
And
So
let me tell you guys, with Natalie Jill, she kind of took me under her wing. I met her at a time where I was really having a hard time in my life, and she really helped me with just a few words of wisdom. And she really
I
took me under her
overstepped my
wing.
bounds. I
No,
overstepped my
it
I
was as it should be.
I love it. Jess, this has been
Yeah.
awesome. You guys, okay, so I'm going to link up all her stuff, but the two specific things I use, I'm probably going to try them all now, honestly, but I use her Nano Glute B and I use the Tud Max. So we're going to link everything though on midlifeconversations.com/Aegis, AEGIS. If you just go to their website or you go through my link, it doesn't matter, but you can use coupon Natalie Jill. And as of the time you're hearing this, there is a discount with that coupon. So go there, especially so she knows you came from me and she'll treat you better. Your
Yes,
stuff will
that's
come on
right.
time. No, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. It'll come
Special
on time too.
treatment.
Special
Yes.
treatment. Thanks, Jess. I'm sure I'll have you back because I just love learning from you. And I thank you for all you do. And I know, gosh, what a journey you've been on with your whole medical career. So I just wanted to thank you for the work you do. I think you're awesome. And I can't wait
Thank
to see where
you.
this company goes and grows.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And as my friend, I appreciate you so much. And I appreciate what you're doing in the world as well. So thank you for educating all of us all the time.
Thanks, Jess.